Chris, with the move to kind of a more traditional 4-3 defense with the three linebackers
Yeah.
instead of kind of the extra safety, what's the biggest challenge you anticipate kind of making that transition?
Yeah, I think for our players, obviously it'll be a new system for them, and the transition to learning what we call things, how we communicate, what we're looking for in terms of alignments and assignments. That'll be different for them. But we've been a part of this system for a long time, and so we know the challenges that are involved in terms of how we get stressed by offenses and also how we want to attack and dictate things from an offensive standpoint. And so we know where things are, and we know how to build it. And so as we teach it to the guys, the thing that I've been really pleased with is how they've adjusted to our language, to our terminology, and also how they've adjusted to the concepts that we've been trying to teach them. We got a lot of guys who are very, very eager to learn and have taken the time to really apply the things that we've been trying to teach them. And so that's been really pleasing to see. You don't always see that, especially on the front end of things. But the young men that we have in this program have really been eager, and we're thankful for it.
Does it impact the linebackers obviously the most, or does it impact like the secondary in terms of responsibilities and assignments? Like when you take that extra safety out, like who does like it fall on the most, to where the changes impact them?
Well, to say it's an individual player, I don't think that would be accurate to say. You move around the stress as a defensive coach. You don't want a singular individual to be isolated more times than they absolutely have to be. Otherwise, good offensive coaches can find that void. And so that's been the plan. So we try to move it around so that it's not as recognizable or identifiable early on, or even at all.
You've been able to get a little hands-on in the workouts here in the winter
yeah.
with the team. I'm curious, initial impressions of what you've been able to learn from them, and any standouts individually that you saw that just sort of caught your eye?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. I think, we're in phase one. We're about to enter into phase two. I'm sure Coach Marve has talked to you guys about that. A big part of this portion of the year is identifying the identity of the team and identifying the identity of the players that we have and establishing what we're looking for and what we want them to display. And so, the winter workouts, our hunger drills, and going into the phase of spring ball really allows us to do that. I think because we have so much experience, in-game experience with guys, there is a level of confidence that's there that wouldn't be if you had a group or a majority of younger guys, and they have that, what I would call their resolute calm in them, that the stray of games or the energy of games or the enthusiasm that comes with playing in stadiums doesn't faze them as much. And so as they're learning and applying the skills and the techniques and the terminology that we're trying to teach them now, they're picking it up a little bit easier. And so, there have been some older guys who have definitely stood out. Dax Hollifield is somebody who immediately comes to mind. I think about a young man by the name of, Keontae Jenkins. He's doing extremely well up front. Our interior tackles and our defensive ends have had tremendous amount of leadership. There are a number of guys who I've seen who have jumped out on different days and for different reasons. But what I've been pleased with is that these guys are answering the challenge and answering the call that we've been putting out on every single day.
Where does Chamarion Conner fit in? Does he slide back to one of the safety spots, or could he potentially fit in a Sam linebacker role?
Yeah, Chamari has a phenomenal skill set, man. I think that's a really good question. So he has. We're teaching him a number of things to see where we can fit him in, because he does check a lot of boxes for what we're looking for in a number of different positions. Obviously, he played primarily nickel last year, and before that, going back a few seasons, he played more so on the back end at free safety or boundary safety. And so we think that he's a tremendous asset for us. To plug him in and say that he's going to play this specific position right now, I don't think that would be fair to say. But what I can say, he's a tremendous asset for us as a team, both because of his mindset and his maturity, but also because of his skill set. I mean, I think that young man is very explosive, very athletic, and he's hungry to be his best version of himself too.
Any position on the defense you feel more confidently about depth-wise, kind of to start out? I mean, Brent said you kind of have been going through everything and kind of identifying where the holes are. But is there a spot on the defense where you feel like depth-wise you're more solid and going into spring camp than other spots?
What I would say to that question is I think we have guys who have played in more games at certain positions than other positions, but at this point, because we haven't really put on pads and played football yet, I don't think that's fair to say, right? And so I think it's a really good question. What I am excited about, though, is to watch our guys, because we are older at certain positions. We have the game experience. I'm excited to see that maturation, that body mass, and the strength, I'm ready to see those guys apply that when we actually play football and see what it looks like. So, talk about that again in the next 2 or 3 weeks. I may have a different answer for you.
Anthony.
Hey, Chris, does opening up practice to fans this weekend increase intensity at all when you've got outside people and an audience getting to watch what's going on out there? And just how excited are you to get out there in Lane Stadium this weekend?
I'm pumped to get into Lane Stadium. This community in general has been absolutely phenomenal to myself and to my family. And I know what it means to our guys and our team. We love it here. And so it's going to be fun to actually have people in the stadium there to cheer us on and to watch how these guys have worked and watch how they've grown. It's going to be fun to be a part of. But for us, as it relates to how we're going to practice and how we are going to be really myopic and focused on what we're doing, that won't affect us. And I think you have to be that way. You have to be focused because come Saturday in the Falls, it's going to be a lot louder than it may be this weekend. You know what I mean? And so I think it's important for us to deliver that message to our guys. I think it's important for them to understand that because it's just a small simulation for the fall to come.
When we talked to Pry just before you here, he said he structured out the first 4 to 5 practices and what you want to accomplish. How detailed is that? I mean, is he a pretty detail-oriented person when it comes to practice and how regimented things are? And is that similar or different than what you're used to from past experiences?
It's pretty similar. I played for Coach Pry, and so when I was a linebacker for him, he was pretty detailed, pretty direct, pretty transparent, and very structured in how he wanted things. He's changed in some ways, but those pillars are still remaining true. And so now we're going to make sure we have a plan for the guys that's in place so they understand where they're going, what we intend to do, and how we plan to scaffold and build practice every single day in terms of the individual periods, the segment periods, and also the team periods.
Being so unfamiliar with your personnel at this point, could you see like the depth chart changing almost on a practice-by-practice basis throughout the course of the spring as you continue to figure out exactly what your guys can do and what they can't do?
What I would say to that question is that I think that when it's appropriate, then that's when you'll see the depth chart changing. In this game is a physical game. It requires toughness, and sometimes things happen where somebody who was available may not be available the next day. And so the thing that we're consistently preaching is preparation and being prepared when your opportunity presents itself, whether it be by injury, whether it be by sudden change, whether it be by scripted by us to see how certain players respond. But it changes from day-to-day basis.
You mentioned the defensive line. In terms of, I asked you about depth too, but numbers-wise, that is a position that's been kind of struggling, especially for tackle the last couple of years, defensive end, trying to hold on to guys. Are you worried just numbers-wise about that spot, or do you feel like you guys have enough to kind of, get through spring and have enough bodies there in terms of scholarship players, especially at tackle? I know a couple are injured for spring too.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think in any system, in any organization, in any level, you can never have too many D linemen. You can never have them because those guys take a brunt of the contact on every single play. I mean, they're not like any other position where you could just be running on air chasing the ball sometimes. Every single play you're going to establish the line of scrimmage, play on the other side, and dominate and create contact. And so you can never have too many of those guys. I like who we have. I like where we are. And we're going to be really smart in terms of how we structure things to make sure that we get what we need out of things, but also that we're able to challenge and help the guys grow in the ways we think they need to grow, the way that we think we all need to grow so that we can be successful. So you can never have too many D linemen, no matter how many you have, in my opinion.
When you got a lot of young guys on there, when you're in a system that blitzes a lot, or Brent probably has historically, is that able to take some pressure off them to kind of help them develop, where they're not asked to maybe, get to the quarterback every time, where, you're creating pressure other ways, so that helps ease them into it, or does that impact them at all?
Yeah, regardless of what you're doing, they have to know what to do, to your question. And I think one thing that our system dictates to offenses is that we make them think also, right? We won't be as static as some other teams. We're going to be moving, and hopefully for our D-line up front, that creates more one-on-one opportunities so that they can go and be successful, whether it's the run game or the pass game.
All right. Thank you, Coach.
Okay, thank you, guys.
Thank you.